Andre, how's it going?
Hey man, I'm fired up, man. Paul Pierce got me fired up. You know what I mean? I love Uncle Paulie. We had some good fights on last night too. I had a good weekend and we got a big week of fights coming up this weekend. Well, this week period. So
Hey,
I'm ready. I'm ready, man.
sweet science of boxing back in full swing. Here we are. Two things, two questions. First question with respect to our main man, Paul Pierce, aka The Truth, Uncle Polly, still standing his ground against D Wade in this discussion as to who is the superior player. Now, we can go in on this from a number of different directions. Why don't you lead the way?
Well, listen, Paul Pierce is as decorated a basketball player. He's been in multiple All-Star games. I mean, even if in his high school career, one of the best players and arguably the greatest high school class, in my opinion, to ever play, the 95 class that had Kevin Garnett, Stephon Marbury, Paul Pierce, Antoine Jameson, Vince Carter, Chauncey Billups, Guy Shamgod, Robert Trailer. I could go on and on. That's one of my favorite high school classes of all time, arguably the best. He was in that. He made a name for himself as a Kansas Jayhawk. By the time he was a junior, he was one of the best players in the nation. He slipped in the draft. I don't know why the teams allowed him to slip. Even Larry Brown. Larry Brown made that pact with Larry Hughes saying he didn't care who was available. He was drafting Larry Hughes. I know that's one of the biggest regrets of his NBA coaching and general managing career. Paul Pierce made a name for himself at Boston. Played with some bullshit teams. By the time 02 came, he made the playoffs. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals, bowed down to the Nets, but they came to play. Antoine Walker, all those guys, Kenny Anderson, all those guys, they came to play. But when you look at his career, man, that was up to that point. That was it. That was his only playoff success. And he played in some shitty Boston situations before KG and Ray Allen got there. So when he talked about his career compared to other players, I know a lot of people love Flash. Flash was the man. D Wade was that guy. But when you break it down, who was a better offensive player? Paulie could score in a variety of ways, and he had the type of game you're not going to speed him up. He's going to play at his own pace. He can get you off the dribble, the mid-range, the three-pointer, which he has over Dwyane Wade, and he could drive to the basket as well. Use that 6'7", 240-pound frame and get whatever shot he want. And when it was prime time, and he played against those big-time players, he always showed up. Always. He got a finals MVP under his belt, multiple all-star games. Like I said, this guy's as decorated. He has the right and earned the right to talk his shit, man.
Without question, Paul Pierce has to talk his shit. If he's not doing that, he's not Paul Pierce. Without a doubt, right? And to your point, this guy has always played within the flow of the game. No one's speeding him up. Just like that clip that you and I were looking at before we tapped in, clock winding down in the Garden against Al Harrington's Pacers, and boom, Truth hits the shot, nothing but net, smooth, within the flow of himself and the game. It's always interesting when you bring up an old Paul Pierce highlight because to an extent, he and Melo both kind of operated a little inside out, mid-range.
Yeah, bully ball.
They can both hit a number of similar kinds of shots. And this is not meant to take a shot at Melo because I'm a Melo fan. But sometimes when you saw Melo get the ball, you knew it was not coming back out, right?
Okay, that's fair. That's because Melo is instant offense. It's go time. As soon as I get the rock, he was like the bigger version of Allen Iverson. You know what I mean?
He's got the elbows up, and you knew it was like Melo time, right? Whereas when you saw Paul get on those squads with KG and Ray, and they had Rondo, and they had young players too that needed the rock. He found a way to adjust his game to be kind of this chameleon of sorts and become a new kind of player than he was when he was playing with Antoine, which is far more of like the gunner,
Yeah.
So
that's when he was 27 points a night. People forget he was that. He was getting 27, 28 points per game averages. He was definitely a flamethrower at that time. But like you said, he dumbed the game down once the guys came. He dumbed it down and was more complimentary to the whole team, and still got his numbers.
Still got his numbers. And as we were saying, after they went to that Eastern Conference Finals, Rodney Rogers, RIP, Tony Delk, some of these guys back in the day, I mean, that was a scrappy Boston squad that just like got by on shooting the three and playing intense defense. And then he kind of had that period of time where he was attacked in the nightclub, right? He was unhappy with the franchise for a while. They did not put talent around him. And then boom, like you said, KG comes into town, whole situation flips. Next thing you know, he is besting Kobe Bryant in the finals, getting that finals MVP. Who can say this? Who can say that they went toe-to-toe with prime Mamba and they're the one coming home with that MVP trophy?
Hey, don't forget that infamous wheelchair incident either, man. You know what I mean? Who else but Uncle Paulie gonna pull that off? I mean, it's not too many people that could say they dominated a series that Kobe Bryant played in, especially at that time during his peak when he's the arguably the best player in the world at that time. And Paul Pierce more than held his own, was out there getting bucket after bucket after bucket. The guy couldn't miss. Paulie was one of the greatest offensive scorers in the NBA at that time, and I put him up there with the Dirk Nowitzki's. I put him up there with the T-Macs. I put him up there with the Vince Carters. He held his own with everybody, and he finally got a team. It's unfortunate that those guys didn't get to play with more talent because, like I said, man, Kevin Garnett was a Spur, and Tim Duncan was a Timberwolf. Tim Duncan would have the Kevin Garnett career. You got to have great management. R.C. Buford, you got Greg Popovich on the Spurs staff. Tim Duncan was fortunate to have those guys. Those guys drafted well in the second round. Those guys evaluated talent well. Kevin Garnett had to deal with Kevin McHale and Glenn Taylor, the Joe Smith infamous signing that set them back, took draft picks away from them. Marbury jealous at the money Garnett taking. Paul Pierce and these guys, Ray Allen, he had to leave that situation in Milwaukee after the 0-1 Eastern Finals loss to the Sixers. They went downhill. He went to Seattle. You're not going to beat the Spurs or the Lakers or the Mavericks in that conference, so he's behind. So we don't know what these guys at their young age, when they were in their primes, at the peak of their primes, would have been like. But they fortunately got a ring, and Paul Pierce can sit at the table and talk his shit. He's a champion.
No doubt. He's a champion every step of the way, in my opinion. And as he correctly pointed out, you put him, just like you were saying about KG being with a David Robinson when he enters in the league.
Oh, man.
Right? Or you put Paul Pierce with a prime LeBron, prime Bosh, or prime Shaq, right? What does that look like? So as you and I were kind of going, discussing previous, just a quick hit list of advantages for the Truth versus advantages for D Wade, because again, you can't step too much to Dwyane Wade because you're talking about Dwyane Wade now. So, Paul Pierce, Los Angeles' finest. I don't know who else jumps to mind in terms of like carrying that mantle for LA like basketball. I mean, DeMar DeRozan is obviously up there, but
Baron Davis too. You could throw Baron up there too.
Baron Davis for sure. But I mean, Paul Pierce coming out of Inglewood, I think he's taking the top spot. Nickname from Shaq. I don't know if there's another person in the sports universe who has not only a cooler nickname, but a nickname that they got bequested to them from none other than Shaquille O'Neal, the Truth.
Yeah, that's major props. From the Shaq, from the Diesel. He give you the name and he paying homage to your game. You're the Truth for a reason.
Unbelievable, right? And then something that a lot of people sleep on with Paul Pierce, when you watch his highlights, there is almost no wasted movement with his footwork.
Not at all. It's the same way Luka plays his basketball game. I always said like Andre Miller, like Paul Pierce is that like on steroids as far as like the pace that he plays. He ain't gonna foul you athletically. He's not uber athletic. You know what I mean? He can get to the lane and drive and dunk on you in his early years, but he wasn't the uber athletic dude like Vince and T-Mac was. But he had the fundamentals. He had the scoring ability. He could put the ball on the floor. Man, we just watched the highlight of him talking to Al Harrington, talking to him while the clock is winding down, and he just stepped to the side and hit that big three right in our face. Not too many niggas, or excuse me, not too many guys can do that and knock down a shot in that moment. You know what I mean? This guy is a instant bucket getter, man. And this is the thing that I hate though. A lot of people that's fans of LeBron, a lot of my friends are LeBron fans, and they have an issue with Paul Pierce because he goes at him, he goes out and try to slight him. But you gotta understand, these guys have wars, playoff wars. When LeBron documentary is done, when they actually do like the last dance for Michael Jordan, and they do, you know how Mike and Isaiah Thomas, they're going to go to their grave not liking each other. The same could be said about the Boston-Miami series. At that time, that was the Chicago-Detroit rivalry. And if Udonis Haslem see Kendrick Perkins at a supermarket, they might have words, and it might be some furniture moves. That's how serious this series was. Then you got Ray Allen leaving Boston to go to Miami. That was a little stain. That hurt. Look, man, this is where they're gonna always talk about Paul Pierce. In my opinion, Paul Pierce is the rival. He's the Isaiah Thomas to LeBron, like Isaiah was to Michael Jordan.
Yes.
The villain. And he played that role well, man.
And he played that role great. I mean, I gotta say, one of my all-time moments as being a fan of the Boston Celtics is seeing LeBron and Paul Pierce die for that loose ball in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yes.
Right? And you're talking about two big dudes going down onto the parquet trying to grab this ball. Why? Because game is on the line, right? Yeah. And when Pierce comes up with this ball, you knew that he had taken down, like, obviously one of the world's best players, only to then go up against one of the world's other best players in Kobe, always representing it. And to your point about the episode that involved the wheelchair and then him coming back like whatever, the heavyweight champion of the world and knocking down those threes. The thing about Paul Pierce that I think no one really fully appreciates is that this guy, even to this day, plays his whole kind of thing. His whole game is kind of played with the proverbial, pardon my French, zero fucks, right?
You gotta have that killer mindset. Kobe had the Mamba mentality. Michael Jordan, he just get that look, and guys like that got that glow to them. So they already won the battle because guys idolize and look up to them. With Paul Pierce, anytime guys were saying this is the next great one, like I was talking to you about the conversation about Paulie spitting at the bench of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I hadn't heard that. I had not heard that.
The rookie year of LeBron, that's to set the tone for the hatred that we have now. It's not they wish bad on each other, but they always gonna have that thing with each other. Same way Isaiah and Mike, they always throw their little shots at one another. It's the same thing. It's competitive nature. These guys been to battles. These guys knocked each other out of playoff situations. These guys won titles. They're champions, and they're going to always look at each other as foes. That's just what it is, man. Did LeBron, when Paul Pierce got his jersey retired, did he not take great pleasure in watching the Cavaliers destroy the Celtics on Paul Pierce jersey retirement night?
That was tough.
Pleasure in watching that.
That was tough. That was tough. And to just bring out the list about D Wade, right? I think that you could say, speaking of Isaiah, I think it's fair to say that D Wade just edges out Isaiah in terms of Chicago's finest.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not trying to take anything away from Isaiah's legacy. I mean, obviously he went toe-to-toe against MJ and all the rest, but that's D Wade. That's D Wade's kind of mantle, I think. Okay. Right?
Sure, for sure. Let me ask you, would I be crazy to put Derrick Rose over Isaiah Thomas? Just because of the impact he was, that
culturally,
Chicago,
yes.
He wore Chicago on his sleeve. I would throw Derrick Rose in that conversation as well, too.
Derrick Rose might actually take that second place spot.
Yes, he would.
Right. So there's the first ring with Shaq, with D Wade, where to be fair, I think that as a very young guy, D Wade was able to kind of catapult himself into the mainstream of the global media.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Because he went from winning that first title with Shaquille O'Neal, who was still kind of in his prime, like on the backslide, but still.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't Diesel Shaq, but it was still Shaq.
It was still Shaq. And then what? Was it like 12 months later when he's doing nationally televised commercials, T-Mobile, Charles Barkley, basically being the face and voice of his basketball generation. I mean,
Yeah.
if you ask me, I think that we saw more of Dwyane Wade on national TV spots than we did LeBron.
I could say that. Yeah,
It,
I
it
could
was
say that. I mean,
close. It
he
was
neck and neck
close.
because he definitely was up there with LeBron as far as like being on commercials and advertisements and stuff like that. He definitely an advertisement guy too, because even back then he was on TV a lot, commercials and all of that.
Yep. And then he had that legacy, that brief legacy, but it was still a moment in time with Converse.
Yeah, he definitely had Converse as his shoe supplier at that time when he won his first championship. He was with Converse.
Right. So he kind of was already, I mean, and one more thing I got to shout out for D Wade, because I don't know if a lot of people remember this, but I believe that he was amongst maybe the first player with that Converse setup he had going on who put the tights on with the sneaks.
Yeah, yeah,
And the
yeah.
NBA outlawed it.
He's the first.
They outlawed it for a while. They said you can't wear tights anymore when you play. And now
Everybody's doing it now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people don't realize just what an impact culturally that D Wade had on that era that was, his prime. Not only a guy that was playing above the rim, but also, let's face it, he, just like Paul Pierce, had to adjust his game when LeBron showed up.
Yeah, and that's hella hard, man. The hand the keys to the Ferrari to somebody else when you was the driver of the Ferrari for years. It takes a certain type of I say intellect. You got to be secure with yourself because this is an alpha driven league, and for that was the only way that was going to work. And he realized that. He knew that LeBron had to be the alpha, the driver of the Ferrari, and he could play the passenger seat. It worked out well for him, but I hate LeBron for even making the choice to go to Miami. I'll never forgive LeBron for that, ever.
Hey, and let's just be real because it's got to be said in this context, right? As much as LeBron has accomplished as a person in this world, as a player on the court, Michael Jordan does not do that move.
Oh, Michael Jordan loved to beat his best friends. He loved to beat on Patrick. He loved to beat on Charles Barkley. Those were his guys at the time. And
right.
He took pleasure in putting a knife in your back.
Everybody loves, right? Everybody loves the comparison of MJ to LeBron, and we all understand it. And, the player that doesn't get mentioned in that mix enough is probably Kobe, right? But Michael Jordan just flat out, that decision, no pun intended, does not cross his mind.
And Michael Jordan prime, the opportunity to go play with Platt or Charles Barkley, absolutely not. That would have never happened. But because we're in a different time, a different era, you know what I mean? The players have the control, but that's when the players receive the control. When LeBron, the guy in his prime, 26, the best player in the world, chose to go somewhere else instead of just being the king of his own kingdom. That's what changed it all around. And please, you Boston fan, I'm a Boston Celtic hater because I'm a Sixer fan naturally.
Gotta do it.
But I'm a KG guy. He's one of my top three athletes of my life. I love Kevin Garnett. I was happy to see him go somewhere where he could get a ring because he spent 12 years. That's a bid. That's a jail bid. That's a prison bid. 12 years in Minnesota. You had to deal with Marbury leaving. Now you go from Marbury to Terrell Brandon, Sam Mitchell, Dean Garrett. How are you going to win with that? Who? If Duncan was on that team, would Duncan squeeze a little more out of them guys than what Garnett did? Hell no.
Troy
Hell no.
Hudson, Latrell, and Sam Cassell. I mean,
That was the best year. That was his best year. 04. That's when he won
that was
MVP.
it. That was it, right? And you know, Tom Gugliotta, Zerbiak.
Oh God,
They,
man.
I
Google
mean,
got a he wanted his money. He bounced. He went to Phoenix. He got the money. He wanted to bounce out of there. He didn't really care for Marbury all like that from the things that I've seen and stuff like that and his reasoning for leaving. But man, they started out, you could tell they was going to possibly be a powerhouse. And then the crazy thing, Marbury and Garnett was in the same high school class. They used to go. Garnett was in his house at Coney Island for a summer or a little spell, a brief period of time, but they knew each other. They were childhood friends. And the money, Marbury let the money get in his head, and then he want to be around a big city because Minnesota is Minnesota. Ain't too much going on in Minnesota but ice cold weather. And he could deal with the weather, but he wouldn't be able to go mango and do whatever else. So, that didn't work out. Garnett was stuck on an island for years. Multiple first-round exits. Multiple. Same thing with Paul Pierce. After that Eastern Conference Finals, he might have lost one more playoff series, and then you a lottery team. You drafting the Al Jeffersons and the Gerald Greens and all of these guys, man. Paul Pierce played in some fucked up circumstances, but when Paul Pierce got KG and Ray, he turned up his value, his worth as a player. He became a Hall of Famer just off the strength. He would have been a Hall of Famer anyway, but it helps when you have a championship under your belt. But I was going to refer to when they got together, they were in their 30s. LeBron went to the Heat at the age of 26. He left it right at the prime, right at the peak. Right when you touch your prime, he left Cleveland.
Yeah. No, there's no question that everybody, I think, in basketball, certainly, Boston Celtics fans will say that 2009 team where KG hurt his knee, that was actually a superior squad than the 08 team because they had the continuity. They had guys like Rondo that were starting to kind of come into their own even more so.
Yep.
And it's because of that one injury to KG's knee, and then obviously the next knee injury the next year, Kendrick Perkins in the finals, right? And Paul Pierce could be sitting here very easily with 3 rings.
Hey man, I remember that year when Garnett was out. The first year, that first playoff series was against the Chicago Bulls. Rookie Derrick Rose. We talking about rookie Derrick Rose. Listen, Derrick Rose will always go down here in my top 10 of my favorite athletes as well. I love his story. I love what he represents. And he really wore Chicago and put that city on his back. And he showed you the first game he went crazy against Paulie and them. They eventually won, but it was a 7-game series. You don't see too many 8 seeds pushing a 1 seed to the limit. They did that year. And Boston, they had a tough time with Orlando. Dwight Howard was going crazy. Hedo Turkoglu was going crazy. Rashard Lewis, Jameer Nelson, and those guys. They took the Boston Celtics out. No KG available. Then the next year, they made it to the finals. And Ron Artest, when Kobe said, "Pass me the ball," and he said no, and he shot the 3 and made it, it broke their dreams, broke their heart. That was a great final series that got Kobe Bryant his 5th ring. That was his 5th ring, I believe.
It was his 5th ring, I believe. Yeah.
That was the 5th ring against Orlando. Boston. That was the 4th ring, and then he got the 5th against Orlando.
4th. You're right, 4th.
That was a great series and legendary. It's Boston, LA. But Paul Pierce, man, he's one of the legendary scorers and one of the greatest shit talkers that ever existed. And one more thing, that's what the game is missing now. We have the Draymond Greens, we have guys like that talk a little shit, but guys like Paul Pierce, who was on the greats caliber, who always like to get under your skin, like Kevin Garnett, those guys were made for each other. Once they left the NBA, that element of talking shit has died down.
Yeah.
Look what Kevin Garnett did to Carmelo. Carmelo waited outside the Boston bus after that game in New York, man. Come on, man. Those guys know what button to press, make you say fuck basketball. I want to fight. I miss that. I miss that element of basketball, man.
I think everybody's with you. That element of basketball somehow maybe just kind of, whether it's the AAU system or these camps or You know, everybody wanted to.
Yeah, man. Everybody friends. Everybody know each other. Everybody tapped in with each other, man. So that's social media, man.
You know, and it's a lot harder to make get invited to, you know, whoever's golf foursome if you're not cool with everybody, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And to that other point, you know, I mean, I don't know how many people outside of maybe a very select few understood the backstory, again, no pun intended, with Paul Pierce and that wheelchair situation. And
he had to take a number 2, man. He had to go to the bathroom.
You know,
man.
and the fact that Paul was so like at ease, just being like, yo, actually, here's like kind of the real scoop there. Not even like, you're talking about a guy right now that, you know, he is comfortable in his image, because here's another Shaquille O'Neal quote: "My image is reality." Paul Pierce is not fronting one bit.
I am who I am. Accept me or don't accept me. This is what it is, baby. And I'm that too, man. I'm so much more comfortable being me. That's why when you see Paul do these shows, Kevin Garnett, and he get that liquor in him. I love when Paul Pierce get that liquor in him, man. I love it because it just illuminates him even more. He's more animated. You know, him and Kevin Garnett had the Showtime special where they were watching the finals. They were streaming it. Paul Pierce start going crazy. He start getting crazy, but he's somebody that remind you of an uncle or a brother, the drunk uncle, the drunk brother. And every family got one of those in their family. That's why I can relate to Paulie, and he was a hell of a baller on top of that. So if I'm ever able and blessed to go party with Paul Pierce, that's a guy I want to party with, man. I love Uncle Paulie, man.
Hey, truth, Paul, you heard it here. You know, lock it in. You know, just put, you know, just send the DM, whatever it's going to take.
Yeah, so, man, let's do
it. Prediction time. Where does this particular narrative go? Does it continue, or does the plane get landed and a resolution happen?
It never be, man. Miami, Boston. Again, it's the same way. Jordan to this day, he don't like Michael Jordan. It's like 50 Cent and Ja Rule. They will never. They're going to go to their graves not liking each other. They're going to take it to the grave, brother. And I like that. We don't all have to be friends. It's okay not to like somebody. It's okay. We don't agree. We bump heads. It's okay. It's okay. It's more this testosterone thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, and then, like I said, these guys been to battle. You know what I mean? Udonis Haslem, C. Kendrick Perkins, they might have words. It was that serious. It was that level of disdain for one another. Paul Pierce didn't really deal with Dwyane. Garnett a chirp with LeBron. You know what I mean? I miss those days. Those were the good old days, man. That's the stuff that I love. That the game lack now, man.
True. Well, Andre, you know, as we always say every weekend, thank you for the education. Thank you for tapping in. Interesting, because I think this is one of the first pieces that we've done that does not include a prediction that we're truly predicting, other than this question between Paul and the likes of the D Wades of the world will never be resolved. And I think that's the ultimate prediction.
Go on. We're going to be in our wheelchairs talking about this shit, man.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Hey, Andre, as always, much appreciated. Thank you. And we'll do it next weekend.
All right, we'll do it next week, bro.
All right, bro.